and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome to Serving Up Success with a Splash. How is everyone? Angie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Bruce, how's it going?
Awesome.
I'm so thrilled to have my co-hosts, Angie Snowball, the Renaissance woman, Bruce Kramer, the corporate cockroach, and
Sounds
me.
so cool when Natesh says it, doesn't it? The Renaissance.
Yeah, it does.
And me.
Bloody.
Listen, do not try an English accent. No, you haven't rehearsed, okay? And as usual, everybody, and I'm not Notesh Desange, Dr. Notesh Desange, your strategy doctor. And as usual, everybody, we're going to dive into a big topic today. We're calling it the strategy schools or the 10 strategy schools, but really it should be more appropriately called ambition. More about that later. We're going to talk about if you're a planner, you're a visionary, you're a learner, you're a cultural shifter, you're a cultural shaper. There's a path for you. And we're going to delve into this in great detail. This is a big lift and it's unrehearsed as usual. We could do this in hundreds of hours, and we're going to attempt to do this in 1 hour. And so, of course, we start with a drink. Angie, what have you got on offer this week?
So this guy is not easy. It's a Sazerac. It is the drink of New Orleans. And what you do first is you take an old-fashioned glass and chill it and rinse it with absinthe or something called Absinthe, I don't even know what that was. I used absinthe. Then you take a cube of sugar and you put it in here and you get out your little muddler guy and you muddle him away. I already made this because it was so hard. Then you pour in the whiskey. So you want 1.5 of these, 1.5 ounces of whiskey. Then you stir in the ice. Then you strain it. Then you dump it in the other glass. Then you put in a lemon dress. Then you mix it up, and this better be good.
It is good. I've already tasted it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Here we go. Cheers.
Cheers.
So I'm not in my usual place, everybody. I'm in a slightly different place. So if the background looks different, it is because the background is different. But Angie, thank you for the drink. Let's move right along. So let's talk about ambition for a second. What is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you desire? Where do you want to be in your professional life, your personal life, your corporate life, what's your ambition for your family? What's your ambition for your friends? What's your ambition for where do you want to live? Okay, so ambition is where I want you to fix your mind for a moment. Strategy is the plan you adopt or create to turn your ambition into reality. Strategy connects where you are now to where you want to go by making smart decisions. So, what about strategy? So this is why we're discussing strategy, but there are a lot of different ways to talk about strategy. There are 10 points of view. I didn't make that number up. We didn't make that number up. There are 10 points of view, and we call them schools, but they're essentially points of view. You've heard the analogy before about an elephant or 10 blind people, a number of blind people trying to figure out what an elephant is. And, the first one grabs its trunk, another one grabs its ear. The 10 schools of strategy, and it's a good way to think about these schools of strategy, that they offer different points of view about an elephant. So 10 points of view about how we do strategy, or 10 approaches how we do strategy. I'm going to delve into these in a moment. We're going to start by we're going to group them a little bit in this first segment. Then we're going to make them practicable. You choose some examples about how you might use them. But first, I want to come to Bruce and Angie. Bruce, let's start with you this week. Where and how have you used strategy? What strategies have you adopted in the past?
Well, so a multitude of strategies. I've used it in my professional career in terms of myself. Where did I want to go? Where did I see myself in 5 years, 10 years? And then, of course, in business, around initiatives and things that we were tackling. And it's interesting because I'm kind of anxious to hear these 10 schools in greater detail. Because when I think of how I've done it, just to your point, and this actually ties back to our first episode where we talked about awareness, action, and accountability. That first big step is where do you want to go? So you have this ambition, clearly defined where you are and where do you want to go and what's that gap. So that's actually the first thing I always think through. And when I'm coaching clients, I have two fairly young entrepreneurs right now that I'm working with, and we're kind of going through these steps. The second thing is you kind of do a real life assessment. You got to do some analysis as to where you're at in terms of what might be if it's a professional career development, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what do I see as the opportunities? And if you're talking about this as a business, it's the old SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and of course threats. The other thing then you start to say is, well, what are some
Hey,
things
wait,
I
time out. Do they
need?
still use SWAT? Is that still a thing? Or
Yeah.
did they retire that?
Yes.
It is still a thing,
It's
Angie.
still a thing.
Good-
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
But good interruption, Angie. I like it.
So
Yes. We still
I
use
would
it.
forget if I didn't
Yeah.
ask now. I'd
Yeah,
forget, and then
yeah.
I'd be sad. I'd be like, "Did they retire that guy? He's still there? Okay, that's cool.
and
Carry
and
on."
and then you start thinking about, what's the path am I taking? Am I going to grow through innovation? Is it about grow? If it's my business, am I growing through partnerships? What's going to be my differentiator? What's going to make me unique if it's just in my personal career development? What's going to set me apart from everyone else? And then I have to think about, well, what are those things that I identified earlier that are my weaknesses or capabilities or skills that I'm going to need if I'm really going to move from where I am to where I want to be. And then I would say the last thing is you start putting actions, pen to paper. What are the things I'm going to do? And we also bring up another tool it's called SMART goals. So you start establishing some objectives, that things you need to accomplish to get from point A to point B, and you want those to be smart, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So you use the SMART goal framework. And then the last thing I always do is that I tell everyone, and then myself personally as a coach, is that you got to monitor. You got to keep track. How am I doing? You have to have some established key performance indicators that you track objectively so you don't bullshit yourself that things are better than they really are, but also to celebrate when you achieve these milestones. So it's important to monitor and learn. No matter what you set out to do, it's going to change along the way. And that comes from learning and adapting. So did I answer your damn question?
I know. I
You
forget
did,
what the question is too.
Angie, I'm gonna come to you in a minute, but what's clear here, what's really clear here, Bruce, is that you've got long experience,
Mhm.
professional experience in doing strategy, in thinking about what your ambition is. We can call it different words. We can say objectives, where do you want to be? But I like the word ambition, what your ambitions are and how you're going to get there. And so you've done a lot of strategy. So this is going to be a really interesting session for us. And I'm going to repeat, we have not rehearsed this at all. So, but Angie, coming to you to talk about how have you done strategy? What have you done to meet your ambitions over your very
Well,
successful career?
yeah, I mean, yeah, different times, different ways. I think what's interesting is if you'd asked me this before last week when I took a look at, the strategy safari and all that stuff, I would say I don't do strategy. I wing it. I don't do things well. That's why I have coaches and they say, "Oh my God, Angie, sit down. You have to do this and you have to do this." But when I was looking at this, I realized one, I did come from a planning school. So I was in the corporate world too, and I did boatloads of Excel spreadsheets and strategies and volume projections and all that kind of stuff. And what I realized was just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's what you want to do. I think I stayed there way too long in that planning strategy of numbers
Yeah.
and spreadsheets because I was good at it. I was getting paid very well for it. And so I thought, hey, isn't that what we're supposed to do? But through time, I realized I just found myself a little bit more and realized, no, I hate this. Doesn't matter how good I am at it. I hate every day I come to work. Sorry, Kim and other old bosses, but that sucks. That job sucks.
She's not that sorry,
Doable.
Kim. She's not
Yeah,
that sorry.
sorry, that was a terrible job.
Yeah.
But now, and I say I'm a wing it, but that is a strategy. That entrepreneurial type school is a strategy in itself. It's just
Yeah.
finding the right people, like Bruce said, to like help you put the pieces together. So you have this strategy, but you need other people to bridge the gap of, okay, this is where I want to be. This is the school that I use. I need a little more of those schools I'm not using. So who has that can help me put the whole school together so I can have a university of strategy and be successful?
Angie, it's clear you've done strategy. I know you said you're winging it, but it's clear to me you've done strategy. So, guys, before we go off to break, what I want to do is I want to talk about the 10 schools, but I don't want to talk about the 10 schools and name them like a lecture and one by one. I'm going to group them into 4 schools. These 10 schools fit neatly into 4 different types of schools. Angie and Bruce have talked about one of them at least, or 2 of them. They talked about the planning school. The planning school is where you plan meticulously, and we're going to talk about when this is a good school or this is a good approach to meet your ambitions. So there's the planning school. There is the vision school or the entrepreneurial school, where you establish your ambition, your vision, and you march towards it, and nothing gets in the way. And that's a different way to do strategy. It's not the same as the planning school. It's different to the planning school. We are not saying, by the way, that one is better than the other. We're gonna talk about when they're appropriate in the second segment after the break. But for now, we've got these 2 schools, planning and vision school. And then there's a third school, which Bruce alluded to, about learning. I don't know that he called it the learning school, but monitoring, learning, and then adapting. Remember Bruce, in his own way, in his own inimitable way, talked about no BS. Absolutely no BS. This is you learn properly. You don't work your way through it inappropriately or without data. You learn. So there's that. That's the adaptive and learning school, or the learning school. And then all the other schools fit into what we would call the cultural school. Your ambition starts with your values. What are your values? And then you do strategy based on your values. All these can be found in the book Strategy Safari, which is what we're basing on this talk on. It's by 3 authors. One of those authors, Joseph Lample, is such a good friend of mine. I've known him a long time. I've learned so much from him, and I'm grateful for the book and all his wisdom. So let us leave this segment before we go to break. We got 4 schools, and we're going to go into them in much more detail in the next piece. The planning school, the vision school, or the entrepreneurial school, the learning school, and then the cultural school. Stay tuned. We'll be back to talk about these in much greater detail. Take us away for the break, Jesse. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. So we're talking about ambition. It's called the strategy schools, but we're talking about ambition. In the first segment, Angie and Bruce outlined some schools. We grouped them into 4 schools: the planning school, the visionary school, the entrepreneurial school, the learning school, and then the values or the cultural school. So which school to use? Well, it depends a lot on your personality. It depends on your environment. It depends on your personal likes and your dislikes. It depends on the experience of your team. But there are some rules, okay? So we're going to talk about these rules now. One of these is to think about what the external world wants. Bruce, in every single episode that we've talked about, often is talking about what the world needs. What is your unique proposition that matches what the world wants? He doesn't always use those words, but that's where Bruce is. Bruce is always thinking about what the market wants, what the world needs. And so we call that the external world, or we can call that the external world. And it depends, therefore, how we characterize the external world. So we're going to just use this one variable, and then I'm going to come back to the guys in a moment. So warning, guys, I'm coming up with a question in about 30 seconds. So if the external world, we're going to use the variable predictability. So if the external world is predictable or unpredictable, what would you do? What strategy school would you employ? So it's a continuum. We're going to use the continuum. So Angie, why don't we start with you? Which strategy school would you use if the external world is predictable? There are no wars. There is no economic turbulence. Inflation is low. trade is flowing in all directions. What strategy school would you use
I
and
think the
why?
planning school. Because
Okay.
you have all the factors there, nothing's going to change on you, or at least not much, because it's predictable. So I think you're going to use a planning school, or was that other one, the positioning school, where you're analyzing. I would say when you're strategizing, you're using plans, you're to collect your data, to analyze your data, and predict things, because it is predictable and you're able to do things when it's stable. Am I correct? Do I fail? Is this a
Oh,
pass fail?
oh,
Please make it a pass fail, because I don't like getting
oh.
B's and C's.
So listen. I gotta say, the only thing that would have made that answer fantastic is, and I would bring the SWOT school, the SWOT
He's
thing
back.
out of retirement and use the SWOT analysis. I would have loved it if you'd said I brought the SWOT school out of
And bring it
analysis.
swap back.
Bringing SWOT back. Yeah, absolutely right. You would, if you know what the world, how the world is configured. Yeah, you'd sit down and plan. You'd design and you'd use SWOT. You would use SMART. You would use Excel. You would use all these tools because everything is entirely predictable. Bruce, tough question for you because you got strategy down to a T in your corporate career. So, tough question for you. Where would the strategy school, do you think, where would the planning school, why would the planning school be inappropriate in an unpredictable environment? What do you think?
There's just too many variables that are unknown. There's not enough stability to do the level of or to validate the analysis you typically do in a more stable marketplace. So to me, you could be wasting a lot of time because there's just too many unknowns.
I
So,
think that was COVID, right? Like
is that a
all
good
these people that
answer?
yeah, like they'd been living in this predictable environment and they had all these processes and everybody knew their charts. And then COVID was like, nobody knows anything anymore. So just hang tight.
And, and, and I got a question for you,
Sure.
Dr. The Doc. As we're having this discussion, isn't it possible though, because I find myself, because where I thrive is where it's unpredictable, or at least
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Yeah.
The
I
jury's out.
agree.
I'm
I
coming,
Others
I'm
I
concur.
coming,
work
I'm
with,
coming to that. I'm
but
coming to that about both of you. I'm coming to that.
but what I like to do is typically I start in that learning adapt mode, and then I kind of make the bold statement around the environmental, but then I go back to planning once I kind of go through it. So I mean, I find like I skate across those four schools to some degree, but what I lead with is absolutely based on the predictability or unpredictability of whatever it is I'm trying to do. Is that
The key is to do what you've just described. The key is to combine what fits best. And your personality, in my view, your personality or your predisposition is an important factor in this. Um,
so I'm not just psychotic?
yeah,
He didn't say that, to be fair.
we have never said that. You say it all the time. I think you need to stop. I
He
think
Oh,
you
said
need
but
it's a
the
to.
good answer.
nonverbal.
Totally, I think knowing you the way I do, I think the way you work is that you skate, as you're using your words, you skate across the four schools. I think you've got a bent though. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've got a bent for the entrepreneurial school, and I think Angie has also. She calls it winging it, okay, but I think she's got a bent for the entrepreneurial school. Angie, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then Bruce's on this. Am I right? Do you think you've got the bent for the entrepreneurial school?
Yeah, I think I definitely do. And one reason I say that is because I'm happy. doing that. I don't second guess myself. I feel very comfortable doing what I'm doing. I feel very confident. Maybe not that I'm right about it, but I don't care what other people think about it because I'm happy with what I'm choosing that strategy to be and I'm confident in what I'm doing. And like Bruce said, if it fails, fail forward, go back to the learning school and then go to the adjusting school and come back again before you go to planning school. But yeah, I think that's definitely it. Whereas before, when I was all strictly in planning mode, I was miserable.
Mm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think entrepreneur is a good place for me because I'm happy here.
Personality matters. Bruce, before I come to you, so you on the disc profile, I'm just combining what we talked about last week. You are definitely not a C, right?
No, no,
Your
see,
C was close to zero.
yes.
Okay, so you would not be happy in the planning school. So do not go and do a job which requires you to sit down and do SWOT, Excel, five forces, all of those models. Do not do those things.
No, I learned that the hard way. That's the other thing when I read these, I was like, man, something really important to me about this conversation is, yes, look for the ones that you are, look for the ones that you want to be, but don't look for the ones you're good at because that may not be what's going to make you happy. I can be very good at it. I
Great
just
point.
don't like it. And
Great.
so you can trick yourself, I think, and start settling for the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, don't take that job. This is where you are, know who you are. You're going to be miserable. But for 15 years, I was miserable because I didn't know that. I was good at it. I'm like,
You were
okay,
good at
this
it.
must
You
be
could
what
do
you're
it.
supposed to do.
Yeah, well, great point. And Bruce, so I said just a few minutes ago, I think you have this you know, desire to be not desire, desire is the wrong word. I think you crave unpredictability, you crave innovation on entrepreneurship. In all our conversations, you have ideation, you have massive ideation. You come up with a lot of ideas at the same time. Yeah, would I be right in thinking you're at the entrepreneurial school, or am I only half right?
No, you hit the nail on the head, and Angie just made my life clear with one of your comments. The reason why I skate across these different schools is that if I was ever held captive in one, I would bow out. I would become, but you're right. That's why I have to lead with the unpredictable type stuff. And I can honestly say in my career, the bulk of my career has been in problem solving, Mr. Fix It. I've had many tags that were around once when we can't figure it out or we don't really understand. Those were the assignments that I would receive and I would absolutely thrive. But I've had to learn to do the planning
Hmm.
because even though I'm playing with unpredictable in an unpredictable environment, it's still important to lay out clearly, especially when you're working across. In some cases, I was working across more than a couple hundred people. It's important there's some structure, and
Hey,
so
do we get to guess what you are, Natish, when we come back
yeah,
Yeah,
from break?
yeah. You get to guess what I am, but after the break.
yes.
Okay.
Take it away, Jesse. We'll be right. Hey guys, welcome back. So we're still on unpredictable and predictable environments. So Angie, you wanted to guess what I am. So I could easily conveniently just pretend that I didn't hear that. But yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. What do you think? And Bruce, you can guess too.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. No, I kind of don't want to guess because I'm afraid I'll be wrong and I'll fail. But I see two things in you. I see one, you're one of the most perceptive people I've ever known, like on so many levels. So part of me sees you in that cognitive school because you're so perceptive and you're a good decision maker, but you challenge assumptions and you get in there and you do that stuff. So I see that part of you. But I also like what was the configuration, the transformative one, because I feel like that crosses everything, like the reinventing when, on both, whether you can go from stable to unstable and still figure it out. So those will be my two guesses. Bruce, what do you guess?
God, I think you nailed it. And I'll be honest, as we've had this discussion, and like you, having had the notes, I would also say though, adapt and learn is a big part of who you are. So I think what makes you so special, and you really are,
Oh my
is
God, you
that
are so kind.
while you're grounded and everything that Angie said, that you learn things to the umpteenth degree, and you have a high capacity to digest information, which is what makes you so perceptive. But I also see you take all of that, and then you do look out there and say, okay, what am I learning from this? How could I adapt to be even more effective? So that's
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
He's one of
I,
those guys that probably uses like his whole brain, or like, you know how they say
Yeah,
when it's this little
yeah.
part, he's like using the whole thing. We're all like, man, that's crazy. Mine shut off.
I gotta say, I just love you guys. I don't care what you would have said. I love you. I totally love you guys. I think what's important in this exercise that we're doing, as far as I'm concerned, is that it doesn't matter really which school you use, right? It doesn't matter which approach you use. Let's understand, though, that there are approaches, and there are different approaches for different circumstances. And personality matters. So go and find something you enjoy doing, so you can do the things you like doing in the way you like doing it. I gotta say, um, I don't mind planning after I've done some, you know, thinking about my values, about my, vision, about my ambition, where I want to get to. But that's not what I want to do 24/7, you know. But
Nobody
historically, this was
does.
the
We
first school that
know
I've
you
heard.
want to drink in there too.
And I want to have a drink that you're making, and you're good at that. I would say that the three of us are quite similar. I'm going to move on to another question for you guys in a moment. I think that there's a similar. I talked about you two being in the entrepreneurial school, but I also do think that you are partly in the Bruce used the term skating across all of them. I'm going to use a different word. Both of you can do invention.
Mm.
Both of you can do invention. This podcast is an invention.
Yes, it came right out of Bruce's head. It's amazing
No,
the things that
no,
come out of there.
Came out of it, but it did. I mean, it really did. It came out of Bruce's head. It totally came out of Bruce's head. Um, Angie and I winged it. We thought, oh yeah, okay, that sounds okay. We don't know,
Yeah, he
but
basically said, "Do you
Bruce's
like to
idea.
drink?" I was like, "Yes, I do." He goes, "Good, you're on the podcast."
So,
that is
so I think both of you have got this desire. I want to call it desire and ability to reinvent. So you're not doing deep analysis, but you've got this intuitive sense about what the world needs, what innovations the world wants, and then you reinvent towards it. It's a real pleasure to see and observe the way you two work. It's
Gosh, my
fascinating.
head's getting so big it's not going to fit out the door.
So,
you
but I'm
know
going to move on. Okay, I'm going to move on now. So Bruce, I saw your finger do this, so you had a
Well,
quick.
we've got like 1 minute. I do have a comment to make. Angie says she wings it, but
Yeah.
I want to come back to that because she never wings anything. But she's the true. There are people. I mean, she knows how to learn. So we'll come back to that. I want to explain that
Okay.
because I see a
Oh, I
lots of
can't wait. This
structure.
is my favorite podcast. Everybody says such nice things.
Okay, Bruce, I'm gonna move on. We don't have 1 minute. We have in this
Oh,
segment we have about 7 or 8 minutes, so it's
oh
fine.
God.
So
Okay,
Oh,
here's
so
the
let me
okay.
question.
let
Here's the
let me
question.
let
Go
me
ahead, go ahead, and then I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead.
so Angie, there's people that absorb information and they memorize information and things they hear along the way. And then there's people like you that apply. It becomes part of their muscle. It's not just academically there in their mind, because I see all four schools. When I first contacted you, you walked me through a strategy
Yeah.
as to how you were going to take me. But what I like about this is you do have Dr. Natej that does that as well, but he also has that really strong understanding and academic mind frame at all times. You just naturally
Yeah.
absorb and then start behaving accordingly. So it's not winging it. You're actually
Not winging
banking
it.
everything.
No, it's great intuition.
That's
Yes.
fantastic. So I don't have to try is good news.
No, you don't have to try,
Have
but
to
you
plan
are
it. That'd be
trying.
bad.
You are trying. But and I think one of the things before I move on to the next question is that I want to say to our listeners is that what we try and do on these sessions is to model the type of interaction and the type of dialogue and the type of narrative and the type of questions we try and model how we think we'd love everybody else to be. So we put some information out there, we put some frameworks out there, and then we sometimes we're flattering to about each other, but we disagree with each other, and we do it in a productive, thoughtful, kind way. And I think if there's one word that could describe what we do here, it's kindness. And I know, Bruce, this was a great philosophy of vision for you when you started this. You started with this vision. I want to see kindness. I want to see disagreement, and I want to see kindness. So I just thought this was a good place to mention that. But before you respond, I want to get a question in because we've only got about 5 minutes in this segment left. So the question is, I want to go back to these unpredictable environments because we focused a lot on the predictable environments and the less predictable. But what about the really chaotic? What about the really chaotic environments? So, Bruce, for no other reason that I can see you before I can see Angie on my right on the photo.
Lucky me.
So
It's something really
in
good,
what
Bruce. Maybe you won't
in
get to
what
me.
in what are the examples in which precise examples, not just sort of, oh, the world is unknowable, the future's unknowable. What, I don't know, sectors, circumstances, types of business would the unpredictable, the entrepreneurial school be most appropriate?
Okay, so I'm going to take a shot at this and I'm going to keep it brief. I'm going to try.
Yeah.
I would say something, and this ties back to the second episode. I would say the impact of AI has made just about every freaking sector a little unpredictable right now. And that goes down to individual jobs, but I'm talking, coming from a huge and very successful distribution organization. I mean, AI is wreaking havoc on everybody and causing everybody to be
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
oh shit, that future isn't so predictable anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's the best way I can answer that. Um, because I don't, I can think of different sectors, education. I could think of, well, it's hard for me to think of some sector right now that isn't sitting in a conference room somewhere going, we got to get a handle on this AI, not only in its existing form, but as you pointed out to us, Natej, the futures, it's there's there's even more unknowns out there in
Right.
terms of the impact. So to me, I've been really caught up in that because as I work with small and medium-sized businesses, while I see a lot of advantages right now with AI, and I do think it's all an upside, but you better figure that out because somebody will, and if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, I think that's really that's where this like environmental or configuration, I don't know all the names of all your stuff because Dr. Natez again is smarter, but that the ability to adapt and not be afraid of that change because like you said, Bruce, there's I mean, I remember when people came to me 3, 4 years ago and they were first using Chat GPT and like, oh my gosh, aren't you worried? You're not going to have a job. What are you going to do with your business? And I said, I don't know. Maybe I'll teach AI. I'll figure something out. Like at that point, I was no longer afraid of it. I embraced it. I learned how to use it. It's the greatest tool that ever happened. I have 3 times more clients than I had then because I have the ability to, because I embraced it and I changed the way I did things. So I think that's where a lot of companies are being left behind or making poor decisions because they're stuck in this traditional planning mode, faced with very unpredictable futures, and there's just no one bridging that gap. And they just keep going straight towards the wall. And like eventually, if you don't turn, if you don't veer, if you don't change something, you're gonna hit the wall. And I think it's really hard for big companies because it's, trying to right a ship. It's easy when you're on a little boat, right, Captain? But if you're in a big ship, that's hard to turn around, and steer it around. I think that's where a lot of companies are going to be hurting because they can't adjust.
Guys, seriously, in these last 3 minutes that you two were just speaking, I promise you, I have learned so much. You're absolutely right. Bruce, just talking about, well, all environments are unpredictable right now. Of course they are.
Yeah.
Bots are they're inventing their own language to talk to one another. We have to switch them off so they can't do that. What could be more unpredictable? And Angie talking about why are we still using the planning school? You two are strategy geeks. You two are imposters. You two are strategy geeks. You're pretending that you didn't know strategy. You're total strategy geeks. Totally, absolutely.
Cheers to us, Bruce, strategy geeks. Who knew?
Cheers to
I'll
you
drink
two.
to that.
We're gonna go to break now, and but seriously, that was fantastic, guys. Absolutely. Just to sum that up before we go to break, we're using planning schools for an unpredictable or a planning approach for our ambitions in an unpredictable environment. Is that stupid? I think it's stupid.
Think it's
When
stupid.
we get when we come back, we are gonna change tack. We're gonna talk about, well, when are each of these schools appropriate for career decision making? How about that? We'll be right back. Jesse, cue the music.
Oh, those drinks kick in eventually.
Welcome back, guys.
Especially
So
this
in a
one.
moment, I'm going to turn to career. But one thing for the guys, Angie and Bruce. Um, so we've done so far. We've done AI. We've done accountability, action, awareness, action. We've done personality profiles. We've done strategy schools. We've started linking these things together. Um, do we want a session, a panel? And I'm sorry, I'm surprising you, totally unrehearsed. Do we
Surprise.
do we want to, at some future event, do we want to host a panel? Do we want to get some people who are deep thinkers about all this sort of stuff, all this combined stuff, not one thing or the other? Do we want to get a panel and we do want to quiz? The three of us want to quiz a panel. I would love to do that with you guys.
My God, it can look just like the Muppet screen. We can get like 9 people on there. That would be so fun.
Well,
Well,
I was thinking of something more serious than the Muppets, Angie.
I mean, it'll
But
look like
sure,
Muppets.
we
It
can
will be like a
entertain that for a
serious
short
Muppets.
while.
well, I think many of the subjects that we've been discussing, we can all agree there's much deeper dives we can do.
Yeah.
Um, I like the idea of the panel, and now I'm thinking out loud, so I don't, want to surprise you two, but I also think it would be pretty cool to have the impact of AI and have a few different business sectors represented. So, because, the thing, Nitesh, that, you really, the thing is you can't fear unpredictability. Unpredictability is the greatest opportunity for huge success because the people that figure out or are able to navigate that unpredictability are going to do really well. So you lead with that curiosity, as we've talked in the past. You do have these different schools of strategy you can apply. There's no reason to fear but you need to acknowledge and you need to move forward and not retreat or freeze.
Bruce, I tell you, when you talk about unpredictability, your face lights up.
Yeah,
I
it does. It gets
you've got opportunity written all over your
Yeah.
forehead, your eyes, your cheeks. It's sort of you're thinking, wow, I've got some opportunities. You get really excited. Your face lights up. You look like a sort of teenager ready to embark on your
Oh my
career.
God.
Yeah.
It would
It's
be
the
so
lighting.
cool. I know it would be so cool to have a panel of people that are from very different industries or positions and just ask them like how they're using AI. Like what are they
Yep.
using? I know I have this like marketing mastermind once a month and we talk a lot about what everybody's AIs they're using and what they like and what they don't like. And that's one of my favorite times of the month. I learned so much from that. So I think it'd be awesome to
Okay,
have a
let's do
panel
it.
and just hear what people are doing.
Let's do it. Okay, we're into the home straight for this evening though, and I do want to hit this topic because it's important because everyone has a career, everyone has ambition, everyone has career ambition. So, and each way of thinking, we call them schools, but I'll be less pompous. There's a way of thinking. Strategy is just a way of thinking. So, which careers do you think? We'll start with the easy schools, the planning schools. Which careers do you think would be the best or most appropriate for sorry, which schools of strategy would be most appropriate for which careers? So we'll start with the planning schools. So which careers are they most appropriate for, do you think?
So I think it's going to be like what I used to do. So anybody who's like in certain data analytics, volume forecasting, that type of thing. But also I would guess, it's just a guess. I'm kind of looking at Dr. Natej like, oh, I hope I pass. I would guess like
You're so
engineers.
funny.
You
Sorry?
know, I would guess like engineers, like engineering, because they want everything about an engineer wants to be very predictable and they want to be able to play. They want to work with facts, you know, and plan things and equations and all those things I'm not good at.
Any others, Bruce? I think so. I agree. But any others?
Yay,
What
I
other
passed
careers?
again.
You know, this is a great conversation because my mind is racing. And by the way, I have a couple of comments. Jesse, our producer engineer, yes, my hairline is retreating, but I can't say the other one on air. But she's a
Jesse,
gas.
stop
Um,
texting,
y- y-
honestly.
so when you asked me again now I'm sorry this is happening live, but I think of again I think of back to the AI stuff
Yeah,
where my mind is racing as to I think as you got to be careful
yeah,
to pretend there's one lane, like one school.
yeah,
We,
yeah,
you,
yeah.
we
Okay.
gotta wipe that paradigm
Yeah,
away.
because
Yeah,
I
think about
think
like
you
techie
have to be,
people
yeah,
that
you
are
have to
coding.
be,
They want the
just,
planning, but they
yeah.
have to adapt because of Bruce's AI thing, right? They got to
Well,
be in two schools.
yeah, I think it's important to read the book.
Yeah.
And just like we did the SWOT, where
yeah,
you're weak, where you're weak in terms of the different schools of thought and
yeah,
strategy, that can only complement you. And it
yeah,
has to complement you. Because if you're stuck in one school of thought or
yeah,
strategy,
yeah.
that I think will be a liability in no time.
Yeah, you know something, I'm glad you mentioned this because I hadn't thought about it that way. I was just gonna talk about careers and each of the four schools, which would be inappropriate. And she said engineering. I think she's right. I may have added finance, but Bruce, I think you're right. I think you're right. Um, there's this has got to be even the questions that I've posed here. I've got to be much more careful about posting them because engineers, CFOs, analysts, they've they've got to be able to use AI. Yeah, they can't be in the planning school, even though that is a career well
Yeah.
suited to
Oh,
planning.
absolutely.
Right.
You're right. You're right. That's you. You've really challenged my assumption there, and I think you're right. I think the question was weak. I think the question was too simple. No, I think you're right. I think the
Well,
question was too
Well,
simple. It was too weak. It was too, our listeners are great people. You're right.
yeah.
There needs to be a better way of framing.
well, I think every career needs all 10 of these schools at every point. And even before AI, like I worked in automotive, right? And there's a ton of engineers running around with their pocket protectors and talking about numbers and stuff. But guess what? Machines would go down and we'd have deadlines. Something would break, a tolerance wouldn't come in, and they have to change things on the fly. They have to adjust. So even though yes, they want to live in the planning world, that I think any career has that, like this is my comfort zone, this is where I want to be. But I can't think of a career that doesn't at some point in time need to be all of these, like especially learning, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everybody has to keep
yeah,
learning.
Well,
yeah.
and it's bringing me back to last week where you need all of the disc types. So I'm thinking as an organization, not so much as an individual, but you have friends and colleagues and stuff you can pull in. I think it's important to understand predominantly your strengths in terms of these different strategy schools, and then go out and get help. Invite others on the team that have the strengths maybe more in the planning side of things, etc. So complement yourself as you learn as well. So to me, it's, if that's something you're not strong at, get the help.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's great that I always enjoy this hour that we have. It's too short. But I don't know about you guys, but I always learn something in this one hour. I always learn something
Oh,
from,
yeah.
from you guys. And I take great joy in the fact that we just don't bother rehearsing this, because if we tried, it would be totally unnatural. So I have one question, because we're going to end in it. We've got 30 seconds or a minute left. One thing that we've all learned just in the last hour. Bruce, you go first.
He says there's more than
Wait,
one
thank
thing,
you.
but I think you know what I like is that the 10 schools kind of break down for me in a more structured, deliberate, purposeful way as to what it is I actually do.
Yeah,
So, it was this conversation that I realized I do skate, uh,
yeah,
for lack of a better term,
yeah.
but I do it out of
Skate's a good
necessity.
word. Skate's a good word.
But I do it out of necessity. So
Mm.
that to me was, and then Angie's aha moment was big for me
What was my aha moment? Tell me later. It must have been
when
good.
you made me realize
We're
that
still
I
using.
skate. You're the one that taught me to skate.
Oh, good.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. But
That's funny.
Angie, what was your one thing? Because we are gonna Jesse's gonna
Yeah,
put into us
I
in a
think
minute.
the one thing is just that I would encourage everybody to know what these 10 schools are,
Yeah.
because one, you'll be able to identify, it's like SWOT. We're really bringing SWOT back, man. You got to know your strengths and weaknesses, right? But I think that was important to me because
Yeah.
one, it built some confidence, like, oh, I do have some strategy. I didn't even know it. And
Mm.
two, it more specifically made me realize, you know what? I probably need more help in that and that instead of just, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. So,
Wonderful. I tell you what I've learned, and I've just learned it in the last 7 or 8 minutes, and then we got to go. What I've learned is that these schools need a little bit more work because of AI. Like everything else, these schools now need a little bit of work. They need a little bit of updating because of AI, and that's where we're going to leave it. Guys, thank you so much for making this such a pleasurable episode, like all the others, but thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
awesome.
Jesse, take us away.
Thank you for
Thanks,
everyone that
everybody.
joined us. We love
Thank
you.
Yeah.
you.
Check
Thank
us
you. Thank
next
you.
week. We have a guest. Come back next week.
Yes, come back.